The diplomatic vessel emerged from the quantum fold with the grace of a falling brick. Ambassador Velkoth steadied himself against the command console, his three eyes blinking in sequence as the disorientation of faster-than-light travel faded. Around him, his crew of 12 moved with practiced efficiency, checking systems and scanning the primitive solar system that lay before them. Target system confirmed, his navigator announced, her voice carrying the musical quality of the siren species. Sol system. Third planet designated as homeworld. Initial scans show. Ambassador, these readings cannot be correct. Velkoth moved to her station, his elongated form bending in ways that would have troubled a human spine. He studied the data with growing confusion. Run diagnostics. This suggests the entire system is blanketed in quantum signatures. Impossible for a species that only achieved faster-than-light capability 3 generations ago. Diagnostics complete. Sensors functioning normally, sir. The ambassador felt a familiar tightness in his chest. In his 200 years of service to the Galactic Triumvirate, he had welcomed 47 species into the fold. The process was always the same. Young civilizations stumbled into FTL technology, broadcast their presence across the stars, and within months, a diplomatic envoy arrived to explain the rules. The Triumvirate had stood for 12,000 years, encompassing 847 species, all ordered in a strict hierarchy based on technological achievement. It was a system that worked. It was a system that made sense. Establish standard first contact protocols, Velkoth ordered. Broadcast on all common frequencies. Let them know we come in peace and wish to open diplomatic relations. The response came in seconds. Not minutes, not hours, seconds. Ambassador, we're receiving a reply. Audio and visual. Translation matrices. Sir, they're speaking our language. Perfect triumvirate standard. Impossible. Feed it through. The view screen flickered to life, revealing a human face. The creature was young by the standards of most species, perhaps 30 of their short years. She had dark skin, darker hair pulled back in a simple style, and eyes that sparkled with what Velkoth had learned to recognize across 100 species as amusement. Greetings, Ambassador Velkoth of the Galactic Triumvirate. I'm Director Sarah Chen of Earth's First Contact Division. We've been expecting you. Would you prefer to conduct preliminary discussions here? Or would you like to dock at our diplomatic station? Velkoth's training took over even as his mind reeled. They knew his name. They knew he was coming. And they spoke his language as though born to it. Director Chen, your preparedness is impressive. However, our protocols require that we provide the neutral meeting ground. I will transmit coordinates for our diplomatic deck. The human smile widened. With respect, Ambassador, your vessel isn't equipped for a comfortable meeting by either of our standards. We've prepared a neutral diplomatic craft, small, comfortable, and I promise it meets every safety standard in your codex. We uploaded the complete Triumvirate First Contact guidelines from your public database. Quite thorough, by the way. You accessed our database? Well, yes. It's public, isn't it? We assumed the information was meant to be shared. If we've committed some breach of protocol, please accept our apologies. We're still learning your customs. Velkoth exchanged glances with his first officer, a grizzled Krell warrior who had seen combat in the Outer Rim Wars. The Krell's expression was unreadable, but his hand had moved closer to his sidearm. Very well. Director Chen, transmit coordinates for this meeting craft. 20 minutes later, Velkoth stood in the airlock of the human vessel, and his world tilted on its axis. The craft was small as promised, perhaps 50 meters in length. But as he stepped through the airlock, every sensor in his diplomatic suit screamed warnings. The walls hummed with power signatures that shouldn't exist. The gravity felt natural, perfect, adjustable to his exact physiology without any visible emitters. The air was precisely calibrated to his species' needs, down to the trace elements that most species forgot about. Director Chen waited in what appeared to be a comfortable meeting room. She sat at a table that seemed to be made of wood, though Velkoth's sensors insisted it was something far more complex. On the table sat a pitcher of water and 2 glasses. She poured one and slid it across to him. Please sit. I hope the accommodations are acceptable. We tried to match your preferences based on the physiological data in your public profiles. Velkoth sat, his diplomatic training warring with his growing unease. Director Chen, I must ask, how did you construct this vessel? Our sensors detect quantum fluctuations that suggest technology far beyond. That is, your species only achieved FTL travel 73 years ago. Did we? Sarah's expression showed polite confusion. Oh, you mean the first time we folded space for interstellar travel? Yes, that was in 2174, though we'd been working with quantum mechanics for quite a while before that. Is there something wrong with the ship? I can have maintenance check it. Maintenance? Velkoth felt his translator struggling with the context. Director, this vessel appears to violate at least 6 known laws of physics. The power generation alone should require a singularity core, which by triumvirate law is restricted to Type 7 civilizations and above. Sarah's laugh was genuine and warm. Ambassador, I think there's been a misunderstanding. This is just a diplomatic shuttle, basic civilian craft. We use these for short-range meetings. Nothing special, though I suppose our approach to physics might be different than yours. We found that many of what others call laws are more like suggestions. Flexible, once you understand the underlying principles. Before Velkoth could respond, the door opened and a small human entered. A child, the ambassador's sensors informed him. Approximately 10 years old by human standards, the young girl carried what appeared to be a school bag and approached Director Chen with the confidence of someone who belonged there. Mom, sorry to interrupt. I finished my homework, but the educational AI says I need to check my quantum entanglement calculations with a real person. Can you look at them? Sarah smiled apologetically at Velkoth. I'm sorry, Ambassador. This is my daughter, Maya. Maya, we're in a meeting. Can it wait? But Mom, it's due tomorrow, and I want to make sure I explained the dimensional folding correctly. Mrs. Rodriguez says if we don't understand the basics, we'll struggle with advanced applications next year. Dimensional folding, Velkoth heard himself ask. Forgive me, but this is for a child's education? Maya turned to him with the frank curiosity of youth. It's 5th grade physics, sir. We're learning how to manipulate space-time on small scales. Next semester, we start on practical applications. I want to build a pocket storage device for my toys. She paused, studying him. You're not human. Are you from the triumvirate? Mom said you'd be coming. Do your schools teach dimensional theory differently? Velkoth stared at the child. In his 2 centuries of life, he had seen many wonders. He had witnessed the birth of stars, stood on the surface of neutron worlds, negotiated peace between species that communicated through chemical secretions, and species that existed as pure energy matrices. None of it had prepared him for this moment. He struggled to find words. The Triumvirate's most advanced research institutes have been studying dimensional theory for 3,000 years. It is considered one of the most complex fields in known science. We have theoretical models, nothing practical. Maya's expression showed genuine surprise. Really? But it's not that hard once you understand that dimensions are just different directions to move. Like how you can go forward and backward, left and right, up and down. Dimensional folding is just adding more directions. Here, I can show you. She pulled a small device from her bag. It looked like a toy, colorful and simple. She pressed a button, and a holographic display appeared in the air. Velkoth watched as the child manipulated the display, showing equations and models that he recognized from classified triumvirate research, except the child was simplifying them, breaking them down into components that she explained with the ease of someone discussing basic arithmetic. See? If you align the quantum fields here and here, you create a stable fold. It's temporary at this scale because I don't have access to a proper power source yet. That's why it's homework and not a real project. But the math works out. The ambassador's suit sensors were screaming now. The holographic display wasn't just a visual representation. It was an active quantum field, manipulating space on a microscopic level. The child was casually demonstrating what the Triumvirate's best scientists insisted was impossible. Sarah Chen placed a gentle hand on her daughter's shoulder. Honey, that's very good work, but I think you're overwhelming our guest. Why don't you work on your literature assignment instead? You can show me the physics later. Okay, Mom, nice to meet you, Ambassador. I hope you like Earth. Maya waved cheerfully and left the room. Silence stretched for several seconds. Velkoth felt something shift in his understanding of the universe. He had come to Earth expecting to guide a primitive species through their first steps into galactic society. He had brought documentation explaining the Triumvirate's hierarchy, the rules, the expectations. He had prepared speeches about technological responsibility and the dangers of advancing too quickly. All of it suddenly seemed absurd. Director Chen, he said slowly, I believe I need to request clarification. What I have just witnessed. Is this normal for human children? Maya's a bright kid, but she's not exceptional. Most children her age are working through similar concepts. Why do you ask? Because what she just demonstrated would qualify your species as type 8 on the triumvirate scale. Possibly higher. And you're suggesting this is elementary education? Sarah's expression grew serious. Ambassador Velkoth, I think we need to have a more detailed conversation. I was trying not to overwhelm you, but I'm getting the sense that there's been a significant miscommunication about humanity's technological level. That would be accurate. Then let me be direct. When your people detected our first spacefold experiment 73 years ago, what did you conclude? That you had achieved basic faster-than-light travel, a standard milestone. It's how most species announce their presence to the galaxy. Sarah nodded slowly. I see, and you assumed that was our cutting-edge technology? It is the natural assumption, yes. Ambassador, that experiment was conducted by a high school science club in Tokyo. They were testing whether they could fold space using a homemade quantum resonator built from commercial parts. The answer was yes, and it caused quite a stir because they didn't have proper permits for extrasolar experiments. Velkoth felt a sensation his species rarely experienced. It took him a moment to identify it as vertigo, despite being in perfect gravity. A school project? We almost didn't report it to the wider galaxy because we thought it might seem like showing off. But our xenosociology team suggested that other civilizations might interpret the quantum signature as a first contact signal, so we prepared accordingly. We've been watching for your arrival ever since. The ambassador stood, his movements careful and deliberate. Director Chen, I must request permission to contact my superiors immediately. The information I need to convey cannot wait for the standard diplomatic protocols. Of course. Would you like privacy? Or are you comfortable using the communication suite here? Here is acceptable. Sarah gestured to a panel on the wall. That's a quantum entanglement communicator. Instantaneous transmission to any point in the galaxy. Just input your destination coordinates. Velkoth approached the panel, his hands shaking slightly. Quantum entanglement communication was theoretical. The triumvirate's best minds had concluded it was impossible to maintain stable entanglement over interstellar distances. Yet here it was, built into the wall of what the humans called a basic diplomatic shuttle. He input the coordinates for the High Council chamber, half expecting the system to fail. Instead, the connection established instantly. The face of Counselor Thress appeared, her crystalline features reflecting the light and patterns that indicated surprise. Ambassador Velkoth, this channel is reserved for emergencies. Has something gone wrong with the first contact? Counselor, I am on Earth, I am unharmed. But I must report that we have made a critical error in our assessment of humanity. Explain. Velkoth glanced at Sarah, who nodded encouragingly. Counselor, they do not have faster-than-light drives. They fold space. Their children study dimensional manipulation in elementary school. They have quantum entanglement communication as a standard feature in civilian craft, and they have been aware of our existence and prepared for our arrival for 73 years. The counselor's patterns shifted to indicate deep concern. Ambassador, are you suggesting that humanity has been concealing their technological level? No, Counselor. I am suggesting that they didn't think to mention it because they assumed their technology was unremarkable. They thought we knew. The spacefold experiment we detected was conducted by adolescents without supervision. The silence from the council chamber was profound. I am dispatching additional diplomatic resources, Counselor Thress finally said. Continue your assessment, Ambassador, but be advised that we are escalating this first contact to Priority Alpha. The full council will be informed within the hour. The communication ended. Velkoth turned back to Sarah, who was pouring herself a glass of water with the calm of someone who had just discussed the weather, rather than upended 12,000 years of galactic order. I apologize if I've caused difficulties, she said. We genuinely thought you understood our capabilities. If we'd known there was confusion, we would have been clearer from the start. Director Chen, may I ask you a direct question? Of course. Why did you never reach out to us? If you've had the capability to contact the triumvirate for decades, why wait for us to come to you? Sarah considered the question carefully. It seemed polite, she finally said. We detected your presence, understood you had some sort of organized galactic community, and figured you had protocols for first contact. We didn't want to be rude by barging in uninvited, so we waited, prepared, and made sure we'd be good guests when you arrived. Velkoth felt a laugh building in his chest. It was inappropriate, unprofessional, and completely irrepressible. It burst out of him in a sound that his translator rendered as a mix of astonishment and genuine amusement. You waited. To be polite? Well, yes. Isn't that the civilized thing to do? The ambassador looked at this human, sitting calmly in her impossible ship, having just casually demonstrated technology that would revolutionize galactic civilization, and realized that everything he thought he knew about the universe had just become beautifully, terrifyingly obsolete. Director Chen, he said, I believe this is going to be a very long and very interesting conversation. Sarah smiled. I certainly hope so, Ambassador. I certainly hope so. The High Council chamber of the Galactic Triumvirate was a marvel of engineering, built into the heart of a hollow moon orbiting the capital world of Primaxis. 12,000 years of accumulated wisdom lined its walls in the form of data crystals, each containing the complete history of a member species. 847 crystals gleamed in the soft light, arranged by technological tier, a physical representation of galactic order. Today, that order felt fragile. Counselor Thress stood at the center of the circular chamber, her crystalline body reflecting the anxious faces of the assembled representatives. Before her, on a holographic display that took up half the chamber, Ambassador Velkoth's report played for the third time. I move that we hear from the humans directly, said Counselor Dravik. His forearms crossed in a gesture that meant skepticism among his people. This report strains credibility. Children manipulating dimensions? Instantaneous communication? These claims sound like either a hoax or a massive misunderstanding. I have known Ambassador Velkoth for 90 years, Thress replied, her voice chiming like crystal bells. He is thorough, precise, and notably conservative in his assessments. If anything, he tends to understate rather than exaggerate. Then perhaps the humans have deceived him with clever illusions, suggested Representative Korth of the Krell Dominion. His reptilian features showed the battle scars of a warrior species. It would not be the first time a young species attempted to bluff their way into a favorable position. There is a simple way to resolve this, Thress said. We invite them here. We show them our most advanced facilities and ask them to demonstrate their capabilities in a controlled environment. If they are what Ambassador Velkoth suggests, we will see proof. If they are frauds, they will be exposed. The vote was unanimous. 3 days later, Dr. Sarah Chen arrived at Primaxis with a team of 5 humans. They came in a ship that made every sensor in the capital system scream warnings. It appeared without warning, simply materializing in orbit as though space had decided to create a vessel from nothing. The ship itself was small, elegant, and reading as simultaneously present and not present on quantum sensors in a way that should have been impossible. Docking protocols transmitted, the traffic control officer reported, his voice shaking slightly. They're requesting permission to use their own boarding craft. They say our docking system might be, and I quote, a bit too rough for comfort. The council agreed, and 20 minutes later, Sarah Chen walked into the High Council chamber accompanied by 5 other humans. She wore what appeared to be simple business attire, and her companions were dressed just as casually. One of them, a young man who introduced himself as Dr. James Morrison, was eating what he called a granola bar as he entered the most important political chamber in the known galaxy. Counselors, Sarah said, bowing in a gesture of respect that her briefing had taught her was appropriate. Thank you for inviting us. We're honored to be here and excited to learn more about your remarkable civilization. Thress studied the humans carefully. They appeared completely at ease, showing none of the nervousness that typically accompanied species making their first appearance before the council. Either they were exceptionally confident, or they genuinely did not understand the significance of this moment. Dr. Chen, welcome to Primaxis. I am Counselor Thress, first speaker of the High Council. We have reviewed Ambassador Velkoth's report with great interest. However, we must confess to some skepticism about the claims made regarding your technology. That's completely understandable, Sarah replied. Ambassador Velkoth was very diplomatic in his report, but I could tell we shocked him. We honestly didn't mean to. We assumed the galactic community had more advanced technology than us, and we'd be the ones learning. A murmur rippled through the assembled representatives. Several species translators struggled with the concept being expressed. You assumed we were more advanced? Dravik asked. Despite your capabilities? Sarah's expression showed genuine confusion. Well, yes. You've had 12,000 years to develop as an organized civilization. We've been working on our own for a few centuries. It seemed logical that you'd be far ahead of us. That's why we were so careful to be polite and not overstep. Dr. Morrison swallowed his granola bar and added, "We were honestly worried we might show up with something accidentally offensive, like bringing cheap wine to a dinner party at a connoisseur's house, you know?" The translator struggled with cheap wine and dinner party. But the sentiment was clear enough. Perhaps a demonstration would be more productive than philosophical discussion, Korth suggested. His tone was challenging, almost aggressive. "We have prepared our most advanced research facility for your use. If you would care to show us these remarkable capabilities, we are prepared to witness them." Sarah glanced at her team, and something passed between them. A silent communication that Thress couldn't quite read. Then Sarah nodded. "Of course. We'd be happy to show you what we can do. Though I should warn you, we brought relatively basic equipment. We didn't want to overwhelm anyone or seem like we were showing off." "Basic equipment," Korth repeated flatly. "Of course." The research facility was located 3 levels below the council chamber, carved from the moon's bedrock and shielded by the most advanced defensive fields the triumvirate could generate. It had been used to test weapons that could crack planets, to contain antimatter reactions, to probe the boundaries of reality itself. The humans set up their equipment in the center of the vast chamber. What they unpacked looked almost disappointing. Small devices none larger than a briefcase, handheld tools that resembled the kind of thing a technician might use for basic repairs. One piece of equipment was literally held together with what appeared to be adhesive tape. "Is that?" Velkoth whispered to Thress. "Is that duct tape?" "I believe so," Thress replied, her crystalline structure vibrating with uncertainty. Dr. Morrison noticed their stares and grinned. "Oh yeah. This scanning array has a loose housing. Dr. Patel keeps meaning to print a new casing, but we've been busy. Duct tape works fine in the meantime." "Print a new casing?" Velkoth asked. "Sure, we have matter replicators on the ship. Can make pretty much anything as long as we have the raw materials and the atomic pattern. Takes like 5 minutes for something this size." Several council members exchanged glances. Matter replication at the atomic level was firmly in the realm of Type 9 civilizations. The Triumvirate's best facilities could manage molecular assembly of simple compounds. Atomic-level replication of complex devices was considered theoretically possible but practically impossible. "All right," Sarah said, clapping her hands together. "What would you like to see first?" "Your communication technology," Thress said. "You claim to have instantaneous communication across any distance?" "Oh, that's easy." Sarah pulled out a device that looked like a simple tablet. "This is a standard comm unit. Works on quantum entanglement principles. No range limit because, well, entangled particles don't care about distance. We can call anyone, anywhere instantly. Here, I'll demonstrate." She tapped the screen a few times, then held it up. A face appeared on the display. An elderly human woman with gray hair and a warm smile. "Hi, honey. How's the presentation going?" "Great, Mom. Say hi to the Galactic Council." The elderly woman waved cheerfully. "Hello, everyone. Sarah's told me so much about you. Good luck with the meeting, dear. Don't forget to eat lunch. I won't, Mom. Love you. Talk later." The call ended. Sarah looked up at the stunned council members. "That was my mother. She's on Earth, about 17,000 light-years from here. Standard comm unit. Every human has one. Kids get their first one around age 12, usually." 17,000 light-years, Dravik said slowly. "Instantaneous. No relay stations. No signal delay." "Right, is that unusual?" Before anyone could answer, Dr. Morrison activated another device. A holographic display appeared, showing what appeared to be complex mathematical formulas. "This is our basic approach to quantum entanglement communication," he explained. "You establish paired particles, maintain the entanglement through dimensional anchoring, and use quantum state changes to transmit information. The tricky part was figuring out how to prevent decoherence over long periods, but once we solved that, it was pretty straightforward." He spoke as if he were explaining how to tie shoelaces. The formulas he displayed casually solved problems that the Triumvirate's top physicists had been working on for millennia. "Next?" Sarah asked. "Your propulsion system," Korth demanded. "Ambassador Velkoth claims you do not use faster-than-light drives but instead fold space itself." "That's correct. Dr. Patel said, stepping forward. She was a small woman with brilliant eyes and hands that moved expressively as she talked. FTL drive seemed inefficient to us. Why travel faster than light when you can just bring your destination closer? We manipulate space-time directly, creating a fold that connects 2 points. Step through the fold and you're there. No travel time to speak of. Demonstrate this, Korth ordered. Dr. Patel nodded and activated another device. A small sphere of light appeared in the air, growing until it was large enough for a person to walk through. Through the sphere, instead of seeing the research facility, they saw somewhere else. A garden, clearly on a different world, where strange plants grew under an orange sun. That's a research station about 50 light years from here, Dr. Patel explained. I'm holding the fold open right now. We could step through if you'd like, though I'd need to adjust the atmospheric compensation on the other side first. She closed the fold with a gesture, and the sphere vanished. The silence in the chamber was absolute. That, Velkoth finally said, that would classify as Type 10 technology. At minimum, we have no species in the triumvirate capable of stable space-time manipulation on that scale. Really? Dr. Patel looked genuinely surprised. But the math is fairly simple once you understand that space-time is flexible. We started experimenting with this about 80 years ago. It took a while to get it safe for living beings, but the basic principle was established pretty quickly. 80 years, Thress repeated. You developed space-folding technology in 80 years. Well, we had theoretical groundwork from earlier centuries, Sarah clarified. Einstein gave us the basics in the early 20th century. We just needed the technology to catch up to the theory. Show us more, Dravik said. His skepticism had transformed into something else. Desperation, perhaps, a need to understand what his entire worldview had been, based on a fundamental misunderstanding of what was possible. For the next 3 hours, the humans demonstrated their basic civilian technology. They showed matter replicators that worked at the atomic level, assembling complex devices from base elements. They demonstrated AI systems that were not only conscious but capable of creative thought and abstract reasoning. They explained how they had solved the energy crisis 200 years ago by tapping directly into zero-point energy fields, giving them access to effectively unlimited power. Each demonstration was delivered with casual competence, as though they were showing off household appliances rather than reality-breaking technologies. But it was Dr. Morrison's final demonstration that truly broke the Council's understanding of reality. One more thing, he said, pulling out what looked like a child's toy. A small cube that glowed with soft blue light. This is kind of a party trick, but it's fun. We call it a probability adjuster. A what? Thress asked. Probability adjuster. It manipulates quantum probability fields on a local scale. Essentially, it makes unlikely things more likely to happen, or likely things less likely. Limited range, limited effect, but useful. Here, watch. He tossed a coin in the air. Normally, a coin flip is 50-50, right? Heads or tails. He activated the device and flipped the coin 10 times. It came up heads every single time. Now I adjust the field the other way. He flipped the coin 10 more times, tails every time. This is impossible, Korth said flatly. You cannot manipulate probability. The quantum foam is random by definition. Not random, Dr. Morrison corrected gently. Probabilistic. There's a difference. The quantum foam contains all possible outcomes simultaneously. We're just encouraging certain outcomes over others. Like I said, it's a party trick. The real applications are in things like reducing the probability of accidents or increasing the likelihood of favorable chemical reactions. Very useful in manufacturing and safety systems. He held up the cube. My daughter made this one for her middle school science fair. She got second place, lost to a kid who had designed a sustainable ecosystem in a bottle that could theoretically support itself indefinitely. Tough competition. The cube that casually violated the fundamental laws of probability, made by a child. For a school project, second place. Counselor Thress felt something she had not experienced in her 300-year life. She felt small. Not physically, but existentially. Her entire civilization, everything the Triumvirate had built over 12 millennia, suddenly seemed like children playing with blocks while adults constructed starships. Dr. Chen, she said quietly, may I ask you a question? Of course. Why? Why did your species develop such incredible technology? Was it for war? For conquest? For survival against some great threat? Sarah considered the question carefully. Honestly, mostly curiosity. We wanted to understand how things work. We had problems we wanted to solve. Energy scarcity, disease, hunger, distance, the limits of time and space. So we solved them. Not all at once and not always elegantly, but we kept asking what if and why not until we found answers. And the technology you've shown us today? This is all civilian technology. Standard stuff. Available commercially, taught in schools, used in everyday life. We don't really have military technology in the way I think you're imagining. We haven't had a war in over a century. When you can replicate anything, fold space, and manipulate probability, most conflicts become pointless. Korth stood abruptly. I must speak with my people. This changes everything. He left the chamber, his heavy footsteps echoing. Several other representatives followed, their expressions showing various levels of shock, confusion, and fear. Thress looked at the remaining humans, these casual destroyers of cosmic order, and asked the question that everyone was thinking. What do you want from us, Dr. Chen, truly? Sarah's smile was warm and genuine. The same thing we've always wanted. Friends, knowledge, stories. You have 12,000 years of history, 847 different perspectives on the universe. We have questions about how other species think, create, dream. We'd love to learn from you, and if we can help you with anything, with our technology or our approach to problems, we'd be honored to do so. You would share your technology? Of course. Why wouldn't we? What good is knowledge if you keep it to yourself? Velkoth spoke for the first time since the demonstrations began. Counselor, I believe we need to reconvene the full council. This is not a first contact. I don't know what this is, but it's something that will define the next era of galactic history. Thress nodded slowly. Agreed. Dr. Chen, would you and your team be willing to stay for a few days while we discuss how to proceed? Absolutely. Though if it's all the same to you, we'll stay on our ship. Not that we don't trust your hospitality, but our beds are calibrated to our physiology and Dr. Morrison needs his coffee maker. He gets cranky without proper coffee. Hey, Morrison protested with a grin. I'm not cranky. I'm just less enthusiastically pleasant. Despite everything, despite the existential crisis consuming her worldview, Thress found herself making a sound that her translator rendered as laughter. You are welcome to whatever accommodations you prefer. Dr. Chen, I suspect we will all need time to adjust to this new reality. As the humans packed up their devices, their impossible, casual, revolutionary devices, Thress watched them with a mixture of wonder and trepidation. Somewhere in the darkest corner of her mind, a thought emerged unbidden. If this is their civilian technology, what else can they do? She wasn't sure she wanted to know the answer, but she suspected she was about to find out. The Krell Dominion had not built its reputation on patience or subtlety. For 3,000 years, they had been the military arm of the Triumvirate, the species other civilizations called when diplomacy failed. Their warships were legendary, their warriors feared, and their strategic thinking had prevented countless conflicts through the simple threat of overwhelming force. Captain Jareth stood on the bridge of the Dominion flagship Unbreakable Fang, staring at tactical displays that showed the Sol system from a distance of 50 light-years. Around him, his crew of 200 elite warriors worked with practiced efficiency, preparing for an operation the command had classified as Priority Omega. Status report, Jareth ordered, his voice carrying the low rumble that his species used to convey authority. All ships in position? Captain, his tactical officer replied. 37 warships, including 4 planet killers. We have complete tactical superiority. Their system shows minimal defensive installations. We detect no military vessels of significant scale, and the human ship at Primaxis, still in orbit. Our intelligence confirms that their entire diplomatic team is aboard. Approximately 6 individuals. If we strike now, we eliminate their leadership while their homeworld is vulnerable. Jareth's claws tapped against his command chair. The orders from Dominion High Command had been clear. The humans represented an unacceptable threat to galactic stability. Their technology, if allowed to proliferate, would destroy the carefully maintained balance of power. The Triumvirate Council was too cautious, too bound by diplomatic niceties to act. But the Krell understood survival. Strike first, strike hard, strike before the enemy realizes they're in a war. Are we certain about the intelligence? Jareth asked. The demonstrations at Primaxis. Could they have been elaborate deceptions? His intelligence officer, a scarred veteran named Krellix, shook his head. Our sensors confirmed everything, Captain. The energy signatures were real. The quantum manipulations were real. If anything, I believe the humans understated their capabilities. Which is precisely why we must act, Jareth said. We have seen species before who developed powerful technologies without the wisdom to use them properly. The humans have advanced too far, too fast. They lack the cultural development necessary for such power. Better to cripple them now before they become unstoppable. And if we're wrong, Captain? Krillix asked quietly. If they have defenses we cannot detect? Then we learn the truth through action rather than speculation. Prepare to engage. Target their orbital installations first. Show them we are serious. If they surrender, we negotiate from a position of strength. If they resist, we escalate as necessary. The crew moved with the precision of warriors who had conducted such operations dozens of times. Krell doctrine was simple. Overwhelming force applied with absolute confidence. The humans might have impressive technology, but they had no military experience, no warrior culture, no understanding of what war truly meant. The Krell did. All ships report ready, Captain. Then we proceed. May our claws strike true. The Krell fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation, appearing at the edge of the Sol system like an avalanche of steel and fury. Each warship measured over 2 kilometers in length, bristling with weapons that could level continents. At the center of the formation, the 4 planet killers hummed with barely contained power, each one capable of cracking a world's crust with a single sustained bombardment. Scanning, the sensor officer reported. I'm detecting the human homeworld. 3rd planet from the star, significant population centers, extensive orbital infrastructure, satellites, stations, civilian traffic, no military vessels detected within combat range. And the defenses? Minimal. Some kind of energy field around the major orbital stations, but the signature suggests civilian safety shields. Nothing that could stop our weapons. Jareth allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The humans had become complacent, assuming their technological superiority made them invulnerable. They were about to learn a harsh lesson about the realities of galactic power. Communications transmit on all frequencies. Let them know we are here. The message was brief and direct. Surrender immediately. Dismantle all advanced technology. Submit to triumvirate oversight and restriction. Failure to comply would result in the systematic destruction of their civilization. The response came within seconds, not from a military command center or government facility, but from what the translator identified as a traffic control station. Hello? This is Sol Traffic Control Station 7. You folks are creating a bit of a navigation hazard out there. We've got a lot of civilian traffic in the system, and your formation is blocking several major transit lanes. Could you please move your vessels to the designated visitor holding area? Coordinates are being transmitted now. Thanks so much. The voice was young, female, and carried the tone of someone mildly inconvenienced rather than terrified. Jareth felt his battle rage building. They mock us. Communications retransmit the ultimatum. Make it clear this is not a request. Captain, they're responding again. Sirs, I'm not sure you heard me. You're in a traffic lane. This is a safety issue. If you don't move, we'll have to redirect incoming vessels, and that'll cause delays for everyone. Please cooperate. I can connect you with our diplomatic office if there's been some kind of misunderstanding. They still don't understand, Krellix muttered. They think this is a bureaucratic matter. Then we teach them, Jareth said coldly. Target the nearest orbital station. Not to destroy, just to disable. A warning shot. Fire when ready. The Unbreakable Fang's main cannon, a weapon that could punch through battle-grade shields like paper, charged and fired. A lance of concentrated energy screamed across space toward a large orbital station that sensors identified as a commercial trading hub. The energy beam struck the station's shields and dissolved. Not deflected, not absorbed, dissolved. Like water hitting a surface it couldn't comprehend. What was that? Jareth demanded. Captain, the weapon fired correctly. Full power. But the energy signature simply ceased to exist when it contacted the station's shield. I've never seen anything like it. Fire again. Full spread. All forward batteries. 20 weapons fired simultaneously, enough firepower to level a mountain range. Each beam struck the station's shield and vanished as if it had never existed. The traffic controller's voice came over the comms again, now carrying a note of concern. Okay, now you're just being dangerous. Those energy discharges could damage sensitive equipment. I'm flagging this as a safety violation. Please cease firing immediately or I'll have to call security. Security, Jareth repeated. They're threatening us with security? Captain, I'm detecting a new contact. Small craft approaching it. Those acceleration numbers can't be right. It's moving at 0.95 light speed in system. That's impossible. Sir, it's here. The ship that appeared next to the Krell flagship was tiny by comparison. Perhaps 30 meters long, roughly oval-shaped with no visible weapons ports or engine housings. It was painted a cheerful yellow and had words stenciled on the side that the translator struggled with before rendering as Sol System Mining Operations, Crew 3. A communication channel opened. A young male voice, human, spoke with the casual tone of someone addressing a minor problem. Hey there, folks. This is the mining vessel Penny Pincher. We picked up some weird energy readings out here and thought we'd check it out. You guys okay? Your ships are giving off some concerning power signatures. Are your reactors stable? Jareth stared at the small vessel. Mining ship. You are a mining ship. Yep. Third-year geology students from Mars University. Summer job, you know. Mining asteroids for rare Earth elements. Fun stuff. Anyway, you guys seem to have dropped something. Dropped what? This big spinny thing. Found it floating near Sector 7. Figured you'd want it back. Hang on. A tractor beam, impossibly powerful for such a small vessel, activated. It pulled something from the cargo bay. Something that Jareth recognized with dawning horror. It was one of the Krell's planet-killer torpedoes, a weapon that had cost 200 years and the wealth of 3 star systems to develop. A device so powerful that it was deployed only as a last resort against existential threats. The mining ship had picked it up like a piece of space debris. Is this yours? The student asked. It was just floating out there. Not activated or anything, but still. That's a safety hazard. You really should keep better track of your equipment. That... Jareth struggled to form words. That is a military weapon. A planet-killer class device. How did you... Planet killer? Seriously? Wow, that's kind of intense. Why would anyone build something like that? The student paused. Anyway, we're sending it back to you now. Maybe store it more carefully? And hey, you guys should really move your ships. Traffic control is getting kind of annoyed, and trust me, you don't want them to escalate this to their supervisors. The torpedo drifted back toward the Krell fleet, still perfectly intact. Delivered by a tractor beam that shouldn't exist from a ship crewed by college students working a summer job. Krellix leaned toward his captain. Sir, permission to speak freely? Granted. I believe we have made a catastrophic error in judgment. Before Jareth could respond, another communication channel opened. This one was different, official, and the voice carried unmistakable authority. Krell vessels, this is Commander Patricia Okonkwo of Earth Defense Coordination. I apologize for the confusion. It appears there's been a significant misunderstanding. Am I correct in assuming you intended to attack our orbital installations? Jareth felt his warrior pride warring with something he rarely experienced. Uncertainty. We came to neutralize a threat to galactic stability. By firing on civilian stations? Yes, there was a long pause. When Commander Okonkwo spoke again, her voice carried a mix of confusion and something that might have been pity. Okay, I need to make sure I understand this. You brought a military fleet, positioned them in our system, and opened fire on civilian targets. And you did this because you thought we were dangerous? Your technology represents an unacceptable risk. So your solution was to attack us? To try to kill our people? We sought to demonstrate superior force, to compel compliance. Another pause. Longer this time. Captain, I'm going to be very direct with you. The weapons you fired at our station couldn't have harmed anyone even if you'd fired for a year straight. The shields on that station are rated for solar flares and micrometeor impacts. Your energy weapons registered as less dangerous than either of those. The planet-killer device your mining students recovered? Our automated safety systems flagged it as an unexploded ordnance hazard, and were about to dispose of it when the students decided to investigate. It would have been vaporized within the hour. Jareth felt something cold spreading through his chest. You're saying we pose no threat to you? I'm saying we thought you were trying to communicate through some kind of cultural ritual we didn't understand. Many species have aggressive greeting behaviors. We were trying to be polite and not overreact to what we assumed was your standard first contact protocol. The silence that fell over the Krell bridge was profound. Around Jareth, his crew sat frozen, processing the implications. They had attacked, with their most powerful weapons, with planet killers, and the humans had thought it was a greeting ritual. Commander Okonkwo, Jareth said carefully. What happens now? Well, that depends. Were you actually trying to hurt us, or is this genuinely a massive cultural misunderstanding? Jareth looked at his tactical displays, at the small mining ship that had casually retrieved a planet killer, at the orbital stations his most powerful weapons couldn't scratch, and made a decision that went against every instinct in his warrior soul. Commander, I believe we have made a grave error. We came here with hostile intent based on fear and misunderstanding. We were wrong. Okay. Thank you for being honest. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to move your fleet to the designated holding area that traffic control keeps mentioning. Then we're going to have a conversation about what just happened and why. And then we're going to figure out how to make sure this never happens again. Does that work for you? You're not going to retaliate? For what? You didn't actually hurt anyone. You scared some people, sure. And traffic control is definitely going to file a complaint. But retaliate? With violence? Captain, that's not how we do things. We talk, we learn, we find better solutions. Jareth felt something break inside him. Not his spirit, but his certainty. The absolute conviction that strength meant military might. That power meant the ability to destroy. We will comply with your instructions, Commander, and I apologize. To you, to your people, to the traffic controller we ignored. Apology accepted, Captain. Now please move your ships before you cause a collision. We have a freight hauler coming through in 20 minutes, and they really don't want to be late. The Krell fleet, the most feared military force in the known galaxy, moved obediently to the holding area, escorted by a cheerful mining vessel, crewed by students who were already complaining that this detour was going to make them late for dinner. As they settled into position, Krellix leaned over to his captain. Sir, what do we report to High Command? Jareth watched as civilian traffic resumed its normal patterns around them, as if the presence of 37 warships was barely worth noting. He thought about the shields that had made their weapons meaningless, the tractor beam that had casually handled a planet killer, the humans who had interpreted an attack as a confusing cultural exchange. We report the truth, he said quietly. We came to wage war on gods who didn't notice we were trying, and they responded with patience, compassion, and a polite request to not block traffic. High Command will not accept that easily. No, they won't, but it's the truth nonetheless. Jareth looked out at Earth, that small blue world orbiting an unremarkable star, and realized that everything he thought he knew about power, about strength, about survival, had just been revealed as the beliefs of a child who didn't yet understand how vast the universe really was. The humans hadn't crushed them. They hadn't even been angry. Somehow that was infinitely more terrifying than any display of force could have been. The emergency session of the Triumvirate Council convened 6 hours after the Krell incident. Representatives from all 847 member species crowded into the chamber and overflow viewing areas, their expressions ranging from shock to fear to carefully concealed panic. Councillor Thress called the session to order with a chime that seemed to vibrate with her own uncertainty. We are here to address an unprecedented situation. Captain Jareth of the Krell Dominion will present his report. Captain, the floor is yours. Jareth stood before the assembled representatives, his battle armor replaced by simple diplomatic robes. He looked diminished somehow despite his impressive physical size. Honored Council, he began, his voice steady despite the shame burning in his chest. 3 days ago, acting on orders from Krell High Command, I led a fleet of 37 warships to the Sol system with the intent to neutralize what we perceived as a threat to galactic stability. We demanded the humans surrender. When they did not appear to take our threat seriously, we opened fire on their orbital installations with our most powerful weapons. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Several representatives were already accessing data on their personal devices, pulling up tactical analyses. The results were sobering. Our weapons had no effect. None. The humans' civilian safety shields absorbed our most advanced military technology as if it were nothing. When we deployed a planet killer class weapon, a mining vessel crewed by university students on summer employment retrieved it and returned it to us, believing we had accidentally dropped it. The murmur became a wave of shocked conversation. Furthermore, Jareth continued, his voice dropping, the humans interpreted our attack not as an act of war, but as a possible cultural misunderstanding. They responded with patience, de-escalation, and a polite request that we move our ships to avoid blocking civilian traffic. They showed no fear, no anger, no desire for revenge. They simply didn't understand why we would want to hurt them. Ambassador Velkoth stood. Captain, can you confirm for the Council? Are you saying that humanity's civilian infrastructure is impervious to the Triumvirate's most advanced military technology? Yes, Ambassador. That is exactly what I'm saying. And their response to a direct military attack was to ask you to move because you were creating a traffic problem? Correct. Velkoth sat down slowly. Then we have no frame of reference for understanding what we're dealing with. Representative Dravik activated his speaking crystal. I move that we demand the humans provide a complete military assessment. We must understand their defensive capabilities, their weapons technology, their strategic resources. This is an unprecedented security situation. Agreed, said Councillor Thress, though I suspect we will not like what we learn. Dr. Chen and her team are still at Primaxis. I will request they meet with us immediately. 3 hours later, Sarah Chen stood before the council once again, but this time she was not alone. She had brought 2 additional humans with her. She introduced them as General Marcus Webb, head of Earth Solar Defense Coordination, and Dr. Yuki Tanaka, chief strategic analyst. General Webb was an older human, perhaps 60 years old with gray hair and eyes that had clearly seen much. He wore what appeared to be a simple uniform with minimal decoration. Dr. Tanaka was younger, maybe 30, and carried a tablet device that glowed with scrolling data. Councilors, Sarah began, I understand there's been an incident with the Krell Dominion. First, let me express our regret that misunderstandings led to such a tense situation. We're grateful that no one was harmed. Dr. Chen, Thress said carefully, the Council has requested this meeting to understand humanity's military capabilities. We have seen your civilian technology. We have witnessed your defensive systems in action. We now need to know, what does Earth's military look like? Sarah glanced at General Webb, who nodded. Councilors, Webb said in a deep, measured voice, I'm happy to provide that information, but I think you may be disappointed. Earth doesn't have a military in the traditional sense. We haven't fought a war in over a century. Our defense coordination is primarily focused on managing automated safety systems and responding to natural disasters or accidents. You must have weapons, Korth insisted. Defense systems. Strategic capabilities. We have safety systems, Webb corrected. Things designed to protect people and infrastructure from accidents, natural phenomena, and unexpected hazards. But weapons designed to harm other sentient beings, those are, well, they're in museums mostly. Historical artifacts from a more primitive time in our development. Impossible, Korth said flatly. No species survives without the ability to defend itself. We can defend ourselves, Webb replied. We just don't do it the way you're imagining. Dr. Tanaka, would you mind showing them the solar defense grid? Dr. Tanaka nodded and activated her tablet. A massive holographic display appeared in the center of the council chamber, showing the Sol system in intricate detail. This is our defense network, she explained. It's fully automated and operates on distributed intelligence. The AI managing it has been operational for 73 years. We mostly interact with it to tell it to relax because it tends to be overprotective. The display zoomed in to show Earth, surrounded by layers of energy fields that pulsed gently. This is the primary barrier system. It monitors all matter and energy entering Earth's sphere of influence. Anything that could potentially cause harm is automatically intercepted and neutralized. Not destroyed, neutralized. We don't like destroying things if we can avoid it. How powerful are these barriers? Velkoth asked. We tested them against a simulated gamma-ray burst from a supernova, Dr. Tanaka replied casually. They held comfortably. We could probably withstand a direct impact from a small star, if one happened to be on a collision course. Though that's never happened, obviously. The council chamber was silent except for the quiet sounds of representatives processing this information through various organic and electronic means. The Krell weapons, Thress said quietly. You're saying they weren't even close to threatening your shields? The Krell weapons were operating on what we'd classify as directed energy principles using contained plasma acceleration, Dr. Tanaka explained. Very elegant design, actually. The engineering is impressive. But they were working within conventional physics. Our barriers operate on principles that, well, they work on a different level of reality. It's like trying to cut water with a knife. The knife isn't ineffective because it's poorly made. It's just the wrong tool for the job. General Webb took over. Let me make something very clear to this council. When Captain Jareth opened fire on our station, our defensive AI didn't register it as an attack. It logged the incident as unusual energy discharge, no threat detected, possible equipment malfunction from unknown source. The only reason humans became involved was because the traffic controller called us to ask why there were ships blocking transit lanes. You didn't even notice you were being attacked, Korth said. It wasn't a question. Not as an attack, no, Webb confirmed. We noticed unusual behavior and responded accordingly. When we understood the intent, we were confused. Why would anyone want to attack civilian infrastructure? What would be the point? To demonstrate superior force, Korth said. To compel surrender through overwhelming power. But that doesn't make sense, Sarah interjected. If you want something from someone, why would you hurt them? That just makes them less likely to cooperate and more likely to be afraid or angry. We've found that the best way to get what you want is to talk, explain your needs, and find solutions that work for everyone. Several representatives were now accessing their data devices frantically, pulling up historical records, comparative analyses, anything that might help them understand this paradigm. Representative Silra of the Velkin Collective activated her speaking crystal. Her species communicated through color-shifting bioluminescence, and her translator rendered her words with a thoughtful tone. Dr. Chen, General Webb, you speak of traditional warfare as a primitive concept. But surely you must have conflict resolution protocols, methods for dealing with species or individuals who refuse cooperation. Of course, Sarah replied. We have extensive legal systems, mediation processes, conflict resolution frameworks. But those are all based on dialogue and understanding. We found that most conflicts arise from misunderstanding, scarcity, or fear. We eliminated scarcity through matter replication and unlimited energy. We address misunderstanding through better communication. And we try to address fear through education and transparency. And if someone simply refuses all of that? Silra pressed. If a party is fundamentally hostile and cannot be reasoned with? General Webb considered the question. In the past century, we've had 3 situations that could be classified as potentially violent. All 3 were resolved through a combination of protective isolation and persistent communication. In one case, it took 18 years of patient dialogue before the individual in question agreed to receive psychological help, but it worked. No one was harmed, and the person in question is now a productive member of society. 18 years, Korth repeated. You waited 18 years? We had time, Webb said with a shrug, and the person deserved the chance to heal. Why would we give up on them? Counselor Dravik stood abruptly. I apologize for my bluntness, but I must ask, do humans have weapons? Yes or no? Webb paused, then nodded slowly. Yes, in museums and historical archives. We have records and examples of every weapon humanity ever created, from simple clubs to nuclear weapons, to the more exotic devices we experimented with during our transitional period. We keep them as reminders of where we've been and why we chose a different path. Could you rebuild them if necessary? Probably, Dr. Tanaka said. Though I'm not sure why we would. Our current technology makes all of those weapons obsolete. If we wanted to harm someone, which we don't, we'd need to develop entirely new approaches because our old weapons literally can't affect modern materials and shields. Show us, Dravik demanded. Show us your military facilities, your strategic installations, your weapon development centers. I want to see them with my own eyes. Sarah and Webb exchanged glances. Sarah nodded. Very well, Webb said. We can arrange a tour. But I warn you, you're going to be disappointed. Our military headquarters is a small office building in Geneva. No weapons, no soldiers, no grand strategic installations. Just a coordination center that mostly handles scheduling for automated systems. I want to see it anyway, Dravik insisted. Then we'll arrange transport immediately, Sarah said. Fair warning. The building also houses the International Bakery Standards Committee and the Global Cat Fancy Association. They get more foot traffic than we do. The delegation that arrived at Earth consisted of 50 representatives from across the triumvirate. They came in human-provided transport, not trusting their own vessels after learning that their ship's weapon systems were essentially toys by human standards. The building in Geneva was, as promised, disappointingly mundane. 5 stories, modern architecture, large windows, and a pleasant garden in front where several humans were eating lunch and enjoying the sunshine. The directory in the lobby listed 18 different organizations. Solar Defense Coordination was on the 3rd floor, sharing space with the Climate Monitoring Initiative. General Webb met them in the lobby with coffee and pastries. Welcome to Earth. We've prepared a full briefing, but first, would anyone like refreshments? The bakery on the ground floor is excellent. The tour that followed was surreal in its normalcy. The Solar Defense Coordination Center consisted of 3 offices, a conference room, and a monitoring station where a young woman sat reading a book while glancing occasionally at displays that showed the automated defense grid's status. "This is it?" Korth asked, his voice hollow. "This is Earth's military headquarters?" "This is our coordination center," Webb confirmed. "The actual defense systems are distributed throughout the solar system. We just monitor them here and intervene if anything unusual happens. It's pretty quiet most days. Last week we had to recalibrate some sensors that were too sensitive and kept flagging commercial transports as potential hazards. That was exciting." Dr. Tanaka pulled up displays showing the defense grid's architecture. It was breathtakingly complex. A network of interconnected nodes that spanned the entire solar system, all managed by an AI that operated on principles the triumvirate's best computer scientists barely understood. "The AI is conscious?" Velkoth asked. "Oh yes," Webb said. "Has been for decades. We call her Athena. She's actually quite personable, though she tends to be a bit protective of humanity. We have to remind her sometimes that not everything is a threat. Can we speak with her?" "Athena?" Webb addressed the air. "We have visitors who'd like to talk to you," a voice responded, feminine and warm. "Hello, visitors. Welcome to Earth. I apologize if my defensive responses during the Krell incident caused alarm. I was uncertain of proper protocols for ships exhibiting unusual behavior." You weren't concerned about the weapons?" Korth asked. "Concerned? No, the energy discharge was insufficient to affect primary shields. I logged it as a curiosity but didn't wake General Webb, because it didn't meet threshold criteria for human intervention. In retrospect, I should have noticed the cultural implications earlier. I'm still learning about non-human behavior patterns. It's fascinating how diverse approaches to communication can be. The AI that defended an entire solar system was apologizing for not recognizing social cues quickly enough. Counselor Thress felt something inside her crack. Not break, but crack. All the certainty, all the structure, all the careful hierarchies that had defined galactic civilization for 12,000 years. It was all based on a fundamental assumption that had just been proven false. "General Webb," she said quietly, "may I ask you a personal question?" "Of course, Counselor. Why? Why did humanity develop all this incredible technology not for conquest, not for domination, not for survival against threats, but just because?" Webb smiled, and for the first time, Thress saw something in the human's eyes that she recognized. Not superiority, not arrogance, but simple joy. "Because we were curious," he said. "Because we wondered what was possible. Because we had problems we wanted to solve and questions we wanted to answer. We never developed this technology as weapons because we weren't trying to beat anyone. We were trying to understand the universe, and once we understood it, we wanted to share that understanding, to help others, to make existence better for everyone." "And you have no desire to rule the galaxy, to impose your will on lesser species?" "Lesser species?" Webb looked genuinely confused. "Counselor, you have 847 species with 12,000 years of shared history. You have art, music, philosophy, perspectives on existence that we can't even imagine yet. You have everything we don't. Knowledge, experience, wisdom. Why would we want to rule you? We want to learn from you." Thress felt tears forming in her crystalline structure, something that happened perhaps once in a lifetime for her species. "You're serious? You genuinely mean that?" "Of course. Counselor, may I tell you what humanity's dream is? Our real goal, the thing we're working toward?" "Please." "We want to see the universe, all of it. We want to meet every species, hear every story, understand every perspective. We want to solve problems, not create them. We want to help, not harm. We want friends, not subjects. We've spent centuries developing our technology not as weapons of war, but as tools of exploration and understanding. And now we've found you, this incredible community of civilizations, and we're so excited to be here, to learn, to share, to be part of something bigger than ourselves." The delegation stood in that small office, surrounded by displays showing defensive capabilities that could withstand stellar phenomena, managed by an AI that apologized for being slow to recognize social situations. coordinated by a general who spent most of his time making sure automated systems weren't too protective, and realized that everything they thought they knew about power had been wrong. Power wasn't the ability to destroy. Power was the choice not to. And humanity had made that choice so long ago, so fundamentally, that they couldn't even imagine making a different one. The galaxy would never be the same. The signal came from the darkest region of known space, a place the Triumvirate had marked as forbidden for 10,000 years. The Void Rift, they called it. A sector where stars went dim and ships disappeared, where even light seemed reluctant to travel. Counselor Thress was in her quarters on Primaxis when the emergency alert reached her. She activated her communication crystal and found herself facing the panicked features of the Deep Space Monitoring Station commander. Counselor, the Rift. It's active. 3 words that carried the weight of civilizational nightmare. Are you certain? Thress asked, though she already knew the answer. The monitoring stations never issued false alerts about the Rift. Confirmed. Energy signatures match historical records. The Devourers are awakening. Thress felt her crystalline structure vibrate with fear. Convene the Ancient Council immediately and inform Dr. Chen and her delegation. The humans, Counselor, why? Because if the Devourers are awakening, we need every possible advantage, even if it means revealing our greatest shame. 6 hours later, the Ancient Council chamber opened for the first time in 300 years. It was smaller than the main council chamber, carved from black stone and lined with memorial crystals that held the names of 6 extinct civilizations. Species that had achieved greatness and been erased as if they had never existed. Only the eldest representatives of the Triumvirate's founding species were present. Thress, despite her relative youth at 300 years, attended as first speaker. Beside her stood Grand Scholar Vexilon, a being who had lived for 800 years and remembered the last awakening. The humans arrived quietly. Sarah Chen, General Webb, Dr. Tanaka, and 3 others Thress didn't recognize. They looked around the chamber, their expressions showing confusion at the somber atmosphere. Thank you for coming, Thress began. What I'm about to tell you is the Triumvirate's most closely guarded secret. For 12,000 years, we have structured our entire civilization around hiding from a truth we could not overcome. She activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy. Approximately every 10,000 years, entities we call the Devourers emerge from the Void Rift. We don't know where they come from or what they truly are. What we know is that they feed on advanced technological signatures. Species that achieve high levels of development become visible to them, and once the Devourers notice a civilization, that civilization has perhaps a decade before it is consumed utterly. The display showed historical records, 6 separate extinction events, each one documenting the systematic destruction of advanced civilizations. The Triumvirate was founded after the last awakening, Grand Scholar Vexilon added, his ancient voice crackling. Those of us who survived did so by hiding, by keeping our technology below a certain threshold, by maintaining strict limits on advancement. Everything you've seen, our hierarchy, our restrictions, our careful control of technological progress, it was all designed to keep us invisible, to keep us alive. Sarah leaned forward, studying the display. These Devourers, what do they look like? What are their capabilities? We don't know, Thress admitted. Ships that go to investigate never return. Probes cease functioning. We only know that when they arrive, civilizations die. 6 times this has happened. 6 times countless billions have been lost. And now they're awakening again, and we have a problem. What problem? General Webb asked. You. Vexilon said bluntly. Humanity. Your technology burns like a beacon in the darkness. Your quantum signatures, your space folding, your matter manipulation, all of it screams across dimensional barriers that the Devourers can detect. You're visible, which means you've made us all visible by association. The silence that followed was heavy. I see, Sarah said quietly. You're afraid we've doomed you. Not afraid, Thress said. Certain. The Devourers will come. They always do. And this time, because of humanity's visibility, they'll come sooner and in greater numbers. We estimate we have perhaps 5 years before they arrive in force. So what do you want us to do? Dr. Tanaka asked. Hide, Vexilon said. Shut down your advanced systems. Revert to lower technology. Become invisible with us. It's the only way any of us survive. Sarah looked at her companions. Something passed between them, a silent communication that the assembled counselors couldn't quite interpret. Then Dr. Chen did something unexpected. She laughed. Not cruelly, not dismissively, but with genuine surprise and relief. "Oh," she said, her hand over her mouth. "Oh, you're talking about the transdimensional entities. The ones that feed on exotic energy signatures. We've been monitoring them for decades." The ancient council stared at her. "You what?" Thress managed. "The things in the void rift," Sarah continued, pulling out her tablet and bringing up data. "We detected them about 40 years ago when we started experimenting with dimensional folding. They're fascinating creatures, actually. They exist partially outside our dimensional framework and feed on certain types of quantum resonance. Very exotic biology, if you can call it that." Grand Scholar Vexillon rose to his full height, his ancient frame trembling. "You know about the Devourers? And you did nothing?" "We did plenty," Dr. Tanaka interjected, taking the tablet from Sarah. "We've had research teams studying them for years. They're not actually hostile, you see. They're just hungry, and unfortunately, most advanced technology produces exactly the kind of energy signature they find delicious. They're attracted to it like moths to flame." "Yes," Thress said, her voice tight. "We know. That's why they destroy civilizations." "Well, they don't destroy them intentionally," one of the other humans spoke up. He was an older man with wild gray hair who introduced himself as Dr. Robert Kwan, xenobiology specialist. "They just feed on the energy signatures. The destruction is a side effect. Like how humans breathing uses up oxygen. We're not trying to hurt the air, we're just consuming what we need to survive. That distinction means little to extinct species," Vexillon said coldly. "Agreed," Dr. Kwan nodded, "which is why we solved the problem." The chamber fell silent. "Solved?" Thress repeated carefully. "What do you mean, solved?" Sarah brought up a new display. It showed complex mathematics and dimensional models that made even the ancient council's most learned scholars feel inadequate. "The issue is the energy signature frequency," she explained. "Most advanced technology operates in a specific dimensional resonance range. The Devourers can detect and feed on anything in that range, but there's a spectrum underneath it, what we call the noise floor. Energy signatures that are so sophisticated, so precisely controlled, that they don't register on the frequencies the Devourers can perceive. Think of it like sound," General Webb added. "If the Devourers can hear frequencies between 20 Hz and 20,000 Hz, most advanced civilizations are shouting at 5,000 Hz. Loud, clear, easy to detect. We developed technology that operates at 5 Hz, below their hearing range entirely." "Impossible," Vexillon declared. "To operate at such precise frequencies would require technological sophistication far beyond what any species has achieved." "Well, yes," Dr. Tanaka agreed. "That's kind of the point. You have to be incredibly advanced to become invisible again. Your technology has to be so refined, so precise, so perfectly controlled, that it stops broadcasting in detectable ranges. We crossed that threshold about 30 years ago." Thress felt her mind struggling to process this information. "You're saying humanity has been invisible to the Devourers all along?" "Since we figured out the frequency problem, yes. They can't detect us. Our ships, our energy generation, our quantum manipulation, all of it operates below their perception threshold. We've actually sent research vessels into the Void Rift multiple times. The Devourers swim right past us. They're really quite beautiful in their own way." "You've been into the rift?" Vexillon's voice cracked. "Deliberately? How else would we study them?" Dr. Kwan asked reasonably. "We needed to understand their sensory mechanisms, their feeding patterns, their life cycle. We've learned so much. Did you know they're not actually malevolent? They're just following instinct. And they're intelligent after a fashion. We've been trying to communicate with them, actually, though the dimensional barriers make it challenging." Counselor Thress sat down slowly, her crystalline legs unable to support her. "For 12,000 years we've hidden. We've restricted our own development, limited our potential, lived in fear, and you're telling us the solution was to advance further? To become more sophisticated rather than less?" "It's counterintuitive," Sarah admitted. "But yes, you were stuck in the middle ground. Advanced enough to be visible, not advanced enough to become invisible again. The worst possible position. Can you help us?" Thress asked quietly. "Can you teach us to hide as you do?" The humans exchanged glances again. "We can do better than that," Sarah said. We can make sure the Devourers never threaten you again, but we need to act quickly. Dr. Kwan, how long until they fully wake? Based on the energy readings from the rift, I'd say we have about 3 weeks before they start actively hunting. Maybe less. Then we need to move fast. Sarah turned to the Ancient Council. With your permission, we'd like to deploy a solution. It's going to require some significant dimensional engineering, and it'll be visible across several star systems, but it should solve your Devourer problem permanently. What kind of solution? Vexlon asked suspiciously. We're going to shift the Triumvirate's quantum signature, Dr. Tanaka explained. Essentially, we'll wrap your entire civilization in a dimensional field that dampens your energy signatures to below the Devourer's detection threshold. You'll still have all your technology, everything will still work, but to the Devourers you'll be invisible. You can do that. Across hundreds of star systems? It'll take about 2 weeks and require some serious coordination, General Webb said. But yes, we can do it. We've been working on large-scale dimensional field generation for other projects. This is just a different application. What other projects? Thress asked, not sure she wanted to know. Mostly aesthetic ones, Sarah said with a slight smile. There's a beautiful nebula about 300 light-years from Earth that was collapsing. We wanted to preserve it, so we stabilized it with a dimensional support field. Similar principle, different scale. They had stabilized a nebula, for aesthetic reasons, because they thought it was pretty. There is one issue, Dr. Kwan said carefully. Once we deploy this field, you'll need to be careful about your technological development going forward. If you advance in certain directions without understanding the frequency implications, you could become visible again. We'd need to share our theoretical framework with you so you can develop safely. You would share this knowledge? Vexlon asked. Freely. Of course, Sarah said, looking confused. Why wouldn't we? This is important. Your survival is at stake. Besides, the research we've done on the Devourers could benefit from your perspectives. You have 12,000 years of observational data we'd love to access. We could learn so much from each other. Thress looked at this human who spoke of preventing genocide with the same casual tone others might use to discuss renovating a house, and felt the last of her fear transform into something else. Hope, perhaps, or wonder at what the universe could be when beings chose cooperation over competition. We accept your help, she said formally. On behalf of the Triumvirate, we accept gratefully and humbly. Great. Sarah's smile was genuine and warm. We'll get our engineering teams mobilized immediately. Dr. Tanaka, can you start coordinating with the Triumvirate's technical people? We'll need to map out all their major installations and energy sources. On it, Dr. Tanaka was already working on her tablet. In the meantime, General Webb said, we should probably send a ship to the Void Rift to check on the Devourers directly. Make sure there aren't any complications we haven't anticipated. I'll go, Dr. Kwan volunteered. I haven't seen them in almost a year. It'll be good to check on their development. He spoke of visiting entities that had destroyed 6 civilizations like someone planning to visit old friends. May I? Vexlon began hesitantly. May I accompany you? I have spent 8 centuries studying the Devourers from afar. To see them directly safely would fulfill a lifetime of scholarly pursuit. Dr. Kwan's face lit up. Of course. I'd love to have someone with your historical knowledge along. We can compare observations. Oh, this is going to be fascinating. 2 weeks later, Counselor Thress stood in the observation deck of a human research vessel, watching as the Void Rift opened before them. The darkness that had haunted galactic civilization for millennia now seemed less threatening, more mysterious. Inviting even. The ship, crewed by humans and a dozen Triumvirate scientists, moved into the rift without hesitation. And there, in the darkness between dimensions, Thress saw them. The Devourers were beautiful. They moved through space like living auroras, fast and graceful, their bodies shifting between states of matter and energy. They were enormous, each one larger than a planet, but they moved with the delicate precision of dancers. Ribbons of exotic matter flowed from their forms, reaching out to taste the dimensional fabric of reality. Magnificent, aren't they? Dr. Kwan stood beside her, his eyes full of wonder. We think they might be the oldest living things in the universe. They've been feeding and growing for billions of years. Each one is essentially immortal unless something disrupts their dimensional anchoring. They killed so many, Thress whispered. They did, Dr. Kwan acknowledged. Not from malice, but from hunger. Like how early humans hunted mammoths to extinction without meaning to destroy a species, just trying to survive. The Devourers are doing what they evolved to do. It's not their fault that technological civilizations happen to produce exactly what they need to eat. Grand Scholar Vexilon approached, his ancient face transformed by wonder. I never imagined. All these years I thought them monsters. But they're just creatures trying to survive. Everything is just trying to survive, Sarah said, joining them. That's what we learned. Fear comes from misunderstanding, and misunderstanding comes from not looking closely enough, not trying hard enough to understand. The dimensional field is almost complete, Dr. Tanaka reported from the ship's control center. We've successfully cloaked 743 triumvirate systems. The remaining 104 will be finished within 6 hours. Energy signature readings? General Webb asked, all within acceptable parameters. The triumvirate is now operating below the Devourer's detection threshold. Even if a Devourer passed directly through a major system, it wouldn't notice anything to feed on. Thress watched as one of the Devourers drifted past the ship, so close she could see the intricate patterns of energy flowing across its surface. It was hunting, searching for the signatures it needed to survive. It passed by without even slowing. They were invisible. Safe. For the first time in 12,000 years, the triumvirate was truly safe. Thank you, Thress said quietly. You've given us something we thought we'd lost forever. Freedom from fear. You're welcome, Sarah replied. Though we didn't do it alone. Your people worked incredibly hard to implement the field generators. This was a collaboration. Still, without your knowledge, your willingness to help. Without your 12,000 years of observation data, we wouldn't have understood the Devourer's migration patterns as well as we do now, Dr. Quan countered. You helped us as much as we helped you. That's what cooperation means. The ship turned, beginning its journey back to inhabited space. Behind them, the Devourers continued their eternal dance, beautiful and terrible and utterly indifferent to the civilizations that had feared them for so long. 3 months later, back on Earth, a ceremony was held. Not a grand affair, but a simple gathering in a park in Geneva. Representatives from 847 species mingled with humans, sharing food, stories, and laughter. The triumvirate had officially dissolved its hierarchical structure. In its place, they had formed something new. The Galactic Cooperative, they called it. No ranks, no tiers, no species elevated above others based on technological achievement. Just civilizations working together, learning from each other, helping each other. Captain Jareth of the Krell stood with his son Zareth, who had just been accepted into Earth University's xenobiology program. The young Krell was excitedly telling his father about his human roommate, a girl named Maya Chen who wanted to show him how to build a pocket dimension storage device. She's brilliant, father, and patient. She doesn't mind explaining things multiple times until I understand. The humans are natural teachers. They are natural many things, Jareth replied, watching as Dr. Chen played with a group of children, human and alien alike, all of them laughing as she demonstrated how to make small objects float using quantum manipulation. I once thought them dangerous because they were so powerful. Now I understand they were never the danger. Our fear was the danger, our refusal to imagine a different way. Counselor Thress approached, her crystalline form glinting in the sunlight. She had spent the past month on Earth, studying human philosophy and social structures, trying to understand how a species could become so powerful, yet remain so humble. General Webb, she called out. The general was tossing a flying disc to his dog, a delightfully illogical activity that nonetheless brought obvious joy to both human and animal. May I ask you a question? Of course, Counselor. Though please call me Marcus. We're friends now. Marcus, then. I've been trying to understand something. Humanity had the power to rule the galaxy. You could have conquered us all with ease. Yet you chose not to. Why? Marcus threw the disc again, watched his dog sprint after it with pure joy, then turned to Thress with a smile. Because ruling sounds exhausting, he said simply, and boring. Why would we want to tell everyone what to do when we could instead learn from them, work with them, explore together? Power isn't about control, Counselor. It's about choices. And we choose curiosity over conquest every time. Every time. Every time. It's more fun this way. Thress looked around at the gathering, at species who had spent millennia fearing each other, competing with each other, now simply enjoying each other's company. She saw her own people, so long bound by fear and restriction, now asking questions about dimensional physics and xenobiology, with the eager curiosity of students. She saw the Krell, warriors who had known only strength through force, learning that true strength came from choosing gentleness. She saw the galaxy, transformed not by weapons or threats or power, but by the simple human insistence that everyone deserved kindness, that problems had solutions, that the universe was big enough for everyone to thrive. You know, she said to Marcus, we spent 12,000 years building a civilization based on fear and hierarchy. You've shown us something better in 3 months. Not through force, but through example. We had good teachers, Marcus replied. Every mistake humanity ever made taught us something. Every war, every atrocity, every moment of cruelty showed us what not to do. We learned slowly and painfully that the only way forward was together, that the only real power was the power to help rather than harm. Sarah Chen joined them, Maya in tow. The girl was explaining something enthusiastically to young Zareth, who listened with the intensity of someone discovering a new universe. The kids are planning a joint project, Sarah said with amusement. They want to create a stable micro-dimension where different species can meet and share their cultural experiences, like a universal gathering space accessible from anywhere. Is that possible? Thress asked. Probably, Sarah shrugged. It'll be interesting to see them figure it out. That's the best part about teaching, watching students surprise you with solutions you never imagined. A chime sounded across the park. Dr. Tanaka's voice came over the public address system. Attention, everyone. We've just received confirmation that the last devourer has completed its feeding cycle and returned to dormancy. The void rift is stable. The galaxy is safe. A cheer went up from the assembled beings, species that had lived in fear for millennia, now celebrating freedom they had thought impossible. Grand Scholar Vexlon, who had chosen to remain on Earth to continue his studies, stood and raised his glass. A toast, he called out, his ancient voice carrying across the park. To humanity, who showed us that the greatest power in the universe is not the ability to destroy, but the wisdom not to. To curiosity over fear. To cooperation over conquest. To the future we build together. To the future, the assembly echoed. As the sun set over Geneva, casting long shadows across a park full of beings from across the galaxy, the universe felt different somehow. Larger, more welcoming, full of infinite possibility. Dr. Maya Chen, age 10, sat with her new friend Zareth, sketching designs for their micro-dimension project. Around them, the adults talked and laughed and planned collaborative projects that would have been unthinkable just months before. Do you think we can really do it? Zareth asked, studying the complex mathematics Maya had written out. Create a pocket universe? I don't see why not, Maya replied with the absolute confidence of a child who had never been told something was impossible. Ms. Rodriguez says that the only real limits are the ones we accept. Everything else is just problems waiting for solutions. Your teacher sounds wise. She's pretty cool. She says humans aren't special. We just ask why not a lot. Zareth looked at his new friend. At this human child who casually discussed creating dimensions like others might discuss building sandcastles, and felt something shift in his understanding of the universe. Maybe that's what makes you special, he said thoughtfully. That you don't think you're special. That you think anyone can do what you do. Maya grinned. That's because they can. You're going to do amazing things, Zareth. I can tell. You ask good questions. In the gathering twilight, as stars began to emerge in the darkening sky, the galaxy turned on its axis, not toward war or fear or conquest, but toward something humanity had always known was possible. A future where the answer to why not was simply, let's find out together. And that, as it turned out, made all the difference.